Nathan Briggs was 42 years old, a staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne Division. He had been deployed in Kandahar for 4 months when the message arrived. A single email, 3 sentences long, ended 13 years of marriage. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." Inside was a PDF file, divorce papers already filed, accounts already emptied, and a new man named Jeremy already living in Nathan's home back in Spokane. He read it twice, closed his laptop, and quietly prepared for his shift, not a word to anyone. That night, back in his bunk, he typed a one-word reply, "Understood." His bunkmate, Wilson, noticed the change in his expression. "You good, man?" he asked without looking up from his book. Nathan answered calmly, "Just some things back home." In the military, men knew when to let silence stand. The truth was, Nathan had not been blindsided. 6 months before deployment, he had felt the shift. Becky, his wife, had stopped asking about his day. She stayed late at the dental office where she worked, joined a gym she never seemed to use, bought new clothes, made new friends Nathan had never met. He did not confront her. He was not the type to check messages or follow her around, but he wasn't blind either. Quietly, he had made preparations of his own. Important documents, birth certificate, marriage license, VA loan papers, even family heirlooms, had been secured in a storage unit across town. He had opened a separate bank account and diverted part of his pay, small amounts she would not notice. Enough that if things collapsed, he would not be starting from zero. The night before deployment, Becky hugged him at the airport. Her eyes were dry. The kind of farewell you give a co-worker, not a husband heading into combat. Nathan should have known then. What Becky never realized was that Nathan never started fights, but he always finished them. Nathan and Becky had met at a friend's barbecue back in 2010. He was home on leave, staying with an old buddy in Spokane. She was finishing nursing school, but later settled into office work at a dental clinic. They married within 8 months. Becky liked to say she was proud of Nathan's service, though she never truly understood it. Her father was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist. No one in her family had ever worn a uniform. More than once, she had asked Nathan when he would get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army was not just a job, but a career, a calling. In 2014, they bought a modest house, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a quiet neighborhood. The mortgage was in Nathan's name through the VA loan, but he had added her name to the deed. Because that's what married people did, he thought, shared everything. Then came loss. His father passed away suddenly, a heart attack while shoveling snow. His mother followed 3 years later, cancer. They left Nathan some money, enough to pay down debts, clear student loans, and give him and Becky a cushion. But with each deployment, he noticed the distance between them growing. Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Every time he returned, Becky seemed more restless, more detached. "I didn't sign up to be a military wife," she told him once when he mentioned re-enlisting. "I'm tired of being alone all the time." Nathan understood, but the Army was where he belonged. He was good at it. His men depended on him. By 2019, the signs had become too obvious to ignore. She grew irritated when he called during her girls' nights. She compared herself to friends who divorced and claimed they were living their best lives. She started saying she and Nathan didn't have much in common anymore. He suggested counseling. She dismissed it, saying it was just a phase. But then came the late nights, the weekends away, the new passwords on her phone. Nathan never confronted her. His father had taught him, think before you act, be certain before you move. So Nathan waited. He watched, and deep down, he trusted his gut. 2 weeks after receiving the divorce papers in Kandahar, he was sitting in the mess hall when his phone buzzed. Another withdrawal from their account. $88,000, almost everything left. The savings they had built together, $47,000, was gone too. Nathan stared at the balance. $22.37. That was all that remained. That night, Nathan called the bank from the base phone center. Patiently, he asked about the withdrawals. The truth became clear. Becky had been moving money for weeks. Small amounts at first, then larger ones, until nearly everything was gone. He hung up and stood in the hallway, surrounded by the noise of other soldiers calling home. Men laughing with their kids, hearing the voices of wives and parents. Normal life carried on all around him, while his own life had collapsed silently through an email and a series of transfers. Later, Wilson, the same bunkmate who had once saved Nathan's life in Kandahar, noticed his expression. "Heard you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner," he said. "What's up?" Nathan rarely shared personal matters, but this time he answered plainly. "My wife emptied our accounts, sent divorce papers while I was on patrol." Wilson didn't respond with pity. He didn't say, "I'm sorry," or "You'll find someone else." Instead, he asked one simple question. "What's your plan?" Nathan didn't know yet, but that night he pulled out his laptop and logged into the home security cameras, something Becky had likely forgotten he could access remotely. The feed showed a truck in the driveway, a man Nathan had never seen before walking their dog, drinking from Nathan's mug, wearing Nathan's Seahawks sweatshirt. Inside, Becky was laughing in the kitchen he himself had remodeled during his last leave. Something shifted in him then. It wasn't anger, not grief, something colder, clearer. He picked up his phone and made a list. Call James, an old Army buddy who had become a lawyer, review VA loan terms, check pension accounts, secure military benefits paperwork, verify property deeds. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was strategy. It was a mission. At 5 a.m., before his next shift began, Nathan sent James an email. "Need legal help, discreet and urgent." An hour later came the reply, "Call me, secure line only." When Nathan hung up from that call, he knew exactly what needed to be done. He wouldn't yell, threaten, or beg. He would wait, he would watch, and he would let Becky's own actions become the trap. 2 months later, Nathan returned to American soil. He didn't tell Becky. He didn't call, didn't text. Instead, he checked into a modest motel in downtown Spokane under a different name. Then he met James, his lawyer friend, at a quiet diner outside of town. "You look like hell," James said as he slid into the booth. "Feels about right," Nathan replied. James opened a folder. Inside were bank statements, loan documents, and one alarming discovery. A refinance application with Nathan's forged signature. Someone had pulled out $330,000 in equity against the house while he was deployed. "Becky did this?" Nathan asked, though deep down he already knew. James nodded. 3 months ago, and here's the kicker, she listed her boyfriend as co-applicant. Jeremy, the man now living in Nathan's house, had a record, 2 DUIs, and a fraud charge. Nathan sat back, steady and quiet. "So she forged my name, drained our accounts, and put a loan on the house. Busy woman." James added, "It gets worse. Some of that refinance money is already gone, and she used her boyfriend's name on the paperwork. That's fraud, serious fraud." The next day, Nathan drove past his house. Becky's car was in the driveway. Jeremy's truck was gone. For a moment, Nathan thought about walking up to the door, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, he went to the bank. He showed the loan officer his military ID, his driver's license, and the forged paperwork. The man's face went pale. "We'll need to report this immediately." "I understand," Nathan replied. That evening, Becky sent him a text. "Who have you been talking to at the bank?" Jeremy said someone was asking questions. Nathan didn't respond. Silence was its own answer. 2 days later, he filed paperwork at the county clerk's office, contesting the refinance as fraudulent and blocking any changes to the property without his approval. The following morning, Becky called. He let it go to voicemail. "Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." The same phrase from her original email. Like adults. Nathan only shook his head and said nothing. James called Nathan later that afternoon with more news. The refinance money had been frozen by the bank, but not before nearly $15,000 had been transferred out. "Where did it go?" Nathan asked. "To someone named Daniel Spencer," James replied. "A real estate agent, specializes in quick cash sales." Nathan's jaw tightened. "She was planning to sell our house." "Looks that way," James said. "And here's where it gets interesting. Spencer has done business with Jeremy before, more than once." Nathan sat quietly, letting it sink in. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a pattern, a scheme. James dug deeper. Jeremy, Becky's boyfriend, had been involved in several cases before, always with women going through divorce, often tied to military families. Each time, the home sold far below market value. Jeremy got a cut, then moved on. Was Becky a victim, Nathan wondered aloud, or was she part of it? "Hard to say," James admitted. "But the FBI is already investigating Spencer and Jeremy. If we connect your case, it strengthens theirs." That evening, Nathan returned to his motel room, opened a beer, and thought about everything. Becky's dry eyes at the airport, the forged signature, the drained accounts. Now, the realization that this wasn't just personal betrayal, it was organized fraud. His phone buzzed, a text from Becky. "Nathan, please call me. The bank says something about fraud. Jeremy got arrested driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening." Nathan stared at the message. Then he typed 3 words. "Who is Spencer?" For a long time, nothing. Then finally, "It's not what you think." Nathan turned off his phone. He wasn't interested in excuses anymore. The next morning, James called again. "FBI wants to meet. Your case might be the one that breaks this operation wide open." For the first time since that email in Kandahar, Nathan felt something close to relief. Not because his marriage had ended, but because the truth was finally coming to light. The following week, Nathan met with 2 FBI agents in Spokane. They listened as he laid out the documents, bank records, forged signatures, security footage from his home. Everything he and James had gathered. "Your case establishes a pattern," Agent Patel explained. "It shows intent, organization, and conspiracy. This isn't just fraud, it's a larger scheme." "What about Becky?" Nathan asked. "We're still determining her level of involvement," Agent Donovan replied carefully. "But Jeremy and Spencer, there's no doubt." That weekend, Nathan parked down the street from his house once more. At 9:30 in the morning, Becky drove away, heading toward Riverfront Park. Minutes later, a car pulled into the driveway. On the door, a real estate logo. Daniel Spencer stepped out. Jeremy met him at the door. Nathan opened his security app on his phone. Inside his own living room, he watched them talk. Spencer snapped photos. Jeremy pointed out features of the house. "We'll list at $470, Spencer said. "Buyer comes in at $420. Everybody's happy." "And the husband?" Jeremy asked. "Military guy. They always cave. He'll take a settlement." Nathan forwarded the live feed directly to Agent Patel. 30 minutes later, the street filled with unmarked SUVs. He watched from a distance as FBI agents led Spencer and Jeremy out in handcuffs. Later, Patel called him. "We've got them on tape. Wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted sale under false pretenses. Your evidence sealed the case." "What happens to Becky?" Nathan asked quietly. "That depends," Patel said, "on what she knew and on what you want." In the end, Becky signed a settlement. She admitted to forging Nathan's name, forfeited all rights to the house, and gave up any claim to his military pension. In return, Nathan didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. Jeremy took a plea deal, 8 years. Spencer received 12. Their scheme had targeted more than a dozen military families across 3 states. Nathan's case had been the one to bring it down. A year later, Nathan sold the house. Too many memories, too much betrayal within those walls. He bought a cabin in Montana, 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of quiet land, a creek running out back. He retired early from the army after 20 years. It was enough. He got a German shepherd named Scout, did carpentry work for neighbors. His pension covered the rest. Sometimes he thought about Becky, wondered where she ended up. But the truth was, he no longer cared. One evening, he opened a letter from a Navy wife in Texas. "You don't know me, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to walk away." Nathan pinned it to his refrigerator. On difficult days, when the silence pressed too hard, he looked at that letter and remembered that something good had come from all of it. Justice had not arrived with anger or noise. It had come through patience, strategy, and truth. And as the sun set over his cabin, Nathan finally understood. Sometimes the quietest battles create the strongest victories.